everyone, it's Amanda from I Sew A Lot, and I'm here today with a quick video with a sew along of the Muse Patterns Jenna Cardigan. Obviously if you've been following my previous videos or if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have heard that I am hosting the Cozy Cardi Challenge with the lovely Rachel and Nikki of the Stitch Sisters. So that is She Sews Vintage and Softboy Sewing. And as a result, I've just wanted to sew lots and lots of cardigans. So I have sewn a couple of Jenna cardigans by Muse Patterns, like I say. I'll put a couple of pictures here so you can see. And I have totally fallen in love with this cardigan. And somebody commented it is like an Astoria cardigan, which is true because it's cropped. It's got a 3/4 length sleeve and a round neck, so it is basically just like an Astoria but a cardigan version. So I was always going to love it, let's be honest. So okay, I've had a few questions about it on my Instagram and also on my previous vlog with my makes. So I thought it would be handy for people if I did a sew along so you could see how I make it. So the pattern comes with a lot of variations. It comes in a cropped length or a long length. It has a short sleeve, 3/4 length sleeve and a long sleeve, and it also has one version with this lovely yoke detail which I think is really vintagey. And I know that you can buy an expansion pack because I have purchased that pack, and it also has a v-neck option which is really nice as well. So I'm going to go with a cropped version with a 3/4 length sleeve. Also, sorry, as you can see, this has buttons down the front, although I'm not going to go with buttons for mine because I find that putting buttons in jersey can sometimes be a pain because you sometimes it stretches out even if you interface it. And also, being 100% honest, I have a new sewing machine, as you all know, and I haven't quite mastered the buttonholes on it. So easier for me, and for those who don't like buttonholes as well, I am going to use snaps, and the snaps I'm going to use are slightly different from those which most people have probably heard of, and they are KAM snaps, that's K-A-M. They have their own special set of pliers to use, and they come in a massive range of different colours, so you can pretty much be certain that you're going to find a colour that matches your fabric. So at the end, I'm going to show you how I put the snaps on as well, because I think that might be useful. So, unfortunately, I have already tried to film this once, and my memory was full. So, the stage that I'd got to, I had stitched together my shoulder seams, as you can see here, and I was just about to get to sewing the sleeves on. So, sewing the shoulder seams together is pretty straightforward, so I don't think you've really missed much, and it's a good job I noticed before I carried on. But one thing I did say in the past video that I'd filmed was that for people who aren't used to sewing garments, putting in sleeves, I just wanted to give a little bit of technical knowledge there. But when you're sewing sleeves, the majority of patterns that you buy have a double notch on the back of the sleeve. They generally have a notch in the centre, as you can see there, and then on the front they also have a single notch, and these notches correspond, and this is the front of the bodice, and that has a single notch at the front. Obviously your centre notch on the head, the sleeve head, corresponds to your shoulder seam, and then on the back it also has a double notch, and they're to match up to make sure that you get your sleeves around the right way. So it's important to pay attention to those notches if you haven't sewn in any sleeves before. So, as I said, I've sewn together my shoulder seams. I've pinned in my sleeves, ready to stitch, and I'm going to do that now. I'm going to sew everything on the overlocker, but there is top stitching around the neckband and down the button band, and also around the hemband, so I'm going to do that on my sewing machine so I can introduce you to my new sewing machine. But like I've said in all my previous videos, you don't need an overlocker. You can sew this with a regular zigzag stitch on your normal sewing machine, and ideally you could sew it with a stretch stitch, which is like a tiny little lightning bolt, but if you don't have that option on your machine, a zigzag will do fine. But it is important to sew it with a stitch that has stretch, because then when there's any tension in your seams, your stitches will not pop. So yes, you need a bit of give. So I'm going to turn the camera around so you can just see my hands and what I'm doing, because I'm going to try it a new way this time, to have my camera relatively close to my machine, and hopefully I won't keep knocking it over, but I think that will make for an easier video. I have already tried to film this video once in a navy and the light was so poor I had to just completely delete it. So I'm hoping the light is a bit better today, so I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see. Okay, so I'm going to turn you around, we're going to stitch on those sleeves. Okay, right, so it looks really dark, and that's obviously because of my light on my overlocker. But as you can see, on my overlocker I have notches for my seam allowance. And one thing to note about this pattern is everything is sewn with a 1 cm seam allowance. And I know on my machine that this marking here is my 1 cm seam allowance, so I'm going to go with the first marking. So we are going to stitch our sleeves in. Here we go. Watching out for pins because we don't want to break the overlocker. Just moving away. Right, here we go. Okay, so that's our sleeves sewn in. So we're starting to look like we have something cardigan-like. So now we need to put our sleeves together at the cuff end, and we're going to stitch all the way down the sleeve to the armpit, making sure that's lined up nicely, and then all the way to the end of the bodice. So we have one long line, and then it really will look like a cardigan. So I'm just going to pin that up, and then we're going to stitch. Right, so as you can see, right sides together. I've pinned my side seams together. I'm only using a few pins because what I do find with knit, when you're using knit fabric, is unlike sort of slippier fabrics, they do tend to sort of stick together. So as long as you line up your main points, like the ends of your hems and where you want your seams to match, you don't generally need to use, there isn't a lot of slippage and movement, so yeah, quite sparse with the pins. Right, so I'm going to turn the camera around again and we're going to stitch these seams up. Right, so here we go. Making sure it's all flat. Okay, now as you can see, we have something that looks like a cardigan. So that's fantastic. So I think the next step is to sew on our hemband. So the hemband is just a really big rectangle, as you can see, and that is folded in half lengthways, so like that, and then this is stitched all the way along the that's with wrong sides together, and then this is just stitched all along the bottom of the cardigan. So you've got some notches on this band, as you can see. Can you see there's one there? And that's you've got a centre one, and I think you've also got ones for the side seams. So I'm going to pin that on, and then I'm going to stitch it on the overlocker, and then I might put the cuffs on as well while I'm here, and then we'll move over to the sewing machine because we need to stitch the bands on. Maybe I should check the instructions. Okay, so I've pinned all my band on, and there's a slight amount of easing, so it's really important that you line up the centre notch that you have. I don't know if you can see that, you've got a centre notch there, and if you line that up and also line up your edges. Again, this is stitched with 1 cm seam allowance, so I'm going to go ahead and do that on the overlocker. Okay, so my hemband is attached, And now I've got to go and press it so that my seam allowance is pointing down towards the neckline, and then we are going to attach the neckband. Okay, so I've pressed my hemband. The rest of it needs pressing, so it's looking a bit crumpled, but I've pressed that so it's all nice and flat. And while I was there, I also pressed my neckband in half lengthways. So now we're going to attach it. So, and then I'm going to hop over to the sewing machine and actually stitch it on with the sewing machine rather than the overlocker, because I want it to be a bit more accurate. So we have a notch in the centre of our back, and we also have a notch, if you can see, in the middle of our neckband, and we have 2 notches further along which will line up with our shoulder seams. So I'm going to pin that on, and then I'm going to switch over to the sewing machine and we're going to baste that on. Okay, so this is my machine. It's really dark, so it's going to be really hard for you to see, but as you can see, it is a Bernina 380. It's got a digital display here. It comes with a lovely flatbed that you can attach or leave off if you like. It's all, like I say, electronic, and it also, I think, does embroidery sort of lettering as well. But I'm slowly getting used to it. It is a beast, but yes, it's going well. Okay, let's get that neckband on. Okay, so as you can see, I'm all pinned on. There is a slight bit of easing in the back of the neck, as you can see, not much so, it's pretty easy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to baste this on, so I am going to change my stitch length to the biggest one, and that is all we're going to do. So, let's see if we can get this. You know what I need? I need one of those GoPros so I could just stick it on my head and then you'll be able to see what I was sewing. Is sewing like an extreme sport that requires a GoPro? Okay, so I have overlocked my seam so it's all nice and neat, and then I've pressed my seam down towards the body, and what we're going to do now is we're going to top stitch our seam allowance to the body of our cardigan. So what I'm going to use for top stitching is my new best friend, and it is this. It is a number 5, and I think it's called a blind stitch foot or blind hem foot. And as you can see, it's got this guide in the middle, and I have found that this makes top stitching amazing. So I'm going to try and show you how this works. I know that you can get these like a universal foot, because I had one from my Genome sewing machine before I got this one. So yes, but this one is really, really good. So I'm going to turn the camera around and then we're going to top stitch that down. I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, right, as you can see, I've got my foot on now, and there's the guide in the middle that moves. So what we're going to do is we're going to place that guide, and hopefully you can see, but obviously I appreciate it's white so it's quite difficult to see, but we're going to place the guide right on the seam in between the neckband and the body of the garment. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to change my stitch length up a bit. I'm going to do it to 3 because I like a bit of a bigger stitch length. And I'm actually going to move my needle over as well. And I'm going to move that over so it's almost entirely all the way over. Actually, I might do it so it's all the way over. And then we're just going to stitch this with a bigger stitch length, some top stitching all the way around. So a bit of back stitching at the beginning. Then off we go, and you keep that guide resting on your seam allowance all the way, and it makes top stitching really easy and really quick. stitching. And if you can see that, I mean, that is some pretty good top stitching. Super neat, love it. Okay, so the next step now is to put on our button bands. So I'm going to baste those on as well. I need to go and press them in half. The pattern actually says to interface a strip on your bottom band, but because I'm using a relatively lightweight jersey, I've actually interfaced the whole of the strip. But the only thing is we have to be careful when we sew it on, because obviously there'll be no give, so we won't be able to stretch it to fit. So there might be a bit of easing going on. So I'm going to go and press these. Oh, actually no, the first step with these, and I'm going to change my foot. The first step is that we need to sew the ends together. So you want to fold your bands so they are right sides together. And we're folding along the short edge. And we're going to stitch down here with our 1 cm seam allowance, and then that's going to make a nice edge. So let's get that on 1 cm, 3/8, whatever you want to call it. Bit of back stitching and back stitching again, and then you want to do that for the other end as well, and for the other band. Okay, and then you want to trim this down so it at least by half, and then I like to also, and it doesn't tell you to do it in the instructions strangely enough, trim off that corner as well. And it makes for a really nice sharp corner when you turn it. And what I also use, which is really, really good, and if you don't have one of these you need to get it, a special point turner, and I find this really, it's got a pointy end one end, I find this really easy and really helpful to use when you are doing curved seams that you need to push out, you know, sort of like sleeves, things like that. I find it really, really helpful for that. So I'm going to stitch my other ends of my other button band together and trim them up, and then you turn them in the right way and give them a press. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I pressed my button bands. As you can see, we've got some really nice sharp corners there, and I've pressed them in half and they're the right way out. So just grab it. What we're going to do now is we're going to obviously pin our button bands onto the edge of our cardigan, and we are nearly there. We're only cuffs and buttons once we finish this step. So I'm going to pin that on, and then I'm going to baste it on, overlock it, and then we're going to do a little bit more top stitching, but I might pop back to you after I've done that, and then we can get on to showing you how to put the snaps on. Okay, so as you can see, I have top stitched my button band on, and I've marked all of my snap placements. And what I would say, if you are going to overlock your bands, I would say, because you need them to thread them back in behind into your stitching, I would leave a nice long chain. Don't snip them off really close, because otherwise you'll end up with sort of, you know, poking out threads which you can't trim back, and it might unravel. So I'm going to leave those long, and then I'm going to stitch them back through the stitching. Okay, right, so the snaps, we're going to do this now. So these are the pliers that you need that come with KAM snaps, and as you can see, they are slightly different from normal pliers. There's a little sort of washer there, and part of it goes in there, and this is what they look like. So both male and female pieces have what looks effectively like a drawing pin, and that is placed in the black washer, and then this squashes down the pin to form a seal. We have male and female parts. Don't ask me which is which, because, you know, I don't really get it, how that works, but I'm assuming the male part goes into the female part. So as you can see, the male part has a flat edge to the top, and the female part has a rounded edge. So we are going to do the top ones first. So as I am female, my right side is going over my left. So this is how it works. So we take our snap, push it through where I've marked until it comes through the other side. Mind your nails, I don't have any nails anyway, as you can see, and they're always really dirty from dye from my sewing. So you push that through so it comes all the way through, and then once you've got that through, which is taking forever, here it comes. Right, so once you've got that poking through, you need to take your rounded one, place it with the rounded side up over the top. It's not pushed right through. It's not pushed through properly. There we go, that's got it. Right, so place that over the top, take your pliers, make sure that your flat side is inside the washer, and then squeeze. Just push it down. And there we go. That's the top part. And then for the bottom part, this is exactly the same process. So we're going to push it through from the wrong side. Hopefully this one's going to actually go through easier than the other. I think it's because I've got interfacing on there as well. So okay, so that's pushed through. And then exactly the same process. Can we get our male part? That's the flat edge part. Place it over the spike, so the spike's coming through the centre. And then place the flat side inside the black washer. And squeeze. And there we go, there's our other side. Easy as that. And great. And I think that is more the reason to make sure that you interface the whole bands, because if you are using snaps, obviously they're going to get quite a lot of tugging, although admittedly I can get these cardigans on over my head without undoing them. If you couldn't do that, then yes, they're going to get quite a lot of tugging, so I would definitely recommend putting interfacing on your whole band. Right, I'm going to finish up my snaps, give this a good press, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so here it is, the finished article. As you can see, the fit's really great. I might bring the shoulders in slightly if I make it again. If I show you my snaps, they turned out really, really well. And I'll just show you the fit. So it turned out really, really great. It's a really good pattern. I would definitely recommend it. And like I said with the snaps, definitely worth interfacing the whole lot. And another tip, once I had filmed the tutorial on adding the snaps, I have tweaked my technique, and to save your nails and your sanity, I would use the biggest, fattest needle that you can find. This is just a normal hand stitching needle, but obviously a very thick one, and pierce the fabric with that, and then it's much easier to insert the sharp end of the snap through. So yeah, that works much better, so I would recommend that. Okay, so I'd really recommend this pattern, like I said, and it's perfect for the Cozy Cardi challenge. So make sure if you do give it a go and you post it on Instagram that you tag myself, Nikki and Rachel, and also don't forget to use the hashtag Cozy Cardi challenge. And as long as you tag us, we will obviously see your make, and that will be your entry. As I've said before, any entries up until the 31st of October are going to qualify. And yeah, such a great pattern. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and obviously click subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. And I'll leave the links, like I said before, to the fabric, the pattern, and all the details to the KAM snaps as well, so that you can check those out if you want to. Thanks for watching, bye!